I just wanted today to talk about a program called Medical Legal Community Partnership. This is something that is specific to our patients, our 400 plus patients of Department of Health Services, 400,000 plus patients, as well as patients in whole person care, which is another program that I'm not going to get into, but basically for high risk Medi-Cal participants. So I just want everybody to take a second. I know you guys are pretty active in the chat right now. So if you can take a second to just jot down some barriers that you think low income patients, the people that you guys write about day in and day out, are experiencing right now. And Pilar, because I'm having trouble seeing the chat. Oh wait, maybe I can see it now. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So yes, if people can just type in a few things. I'll just throw out one as an example, and some of these little pictures show you examples. Housing would be a barrier, something people are dealing with right now, and we just heard a lot about from our previous speaker. So feel free to type in anything. I will keep going though. So some of these barriers are, as you see in the pictures here, money, finances, access to healthcare, access to food, access to housing, access to transportation. So this is what is called, as you all probably know, the social determinants of health. It's a horrible phrase. It's a horrible saying. Fear of immigration status, great. Fear of being exposed, good, Sandy, thank you. But what it basically means is that people have other things outside of their medical conditions that impact their health. All of these things, right? Employment, income, your language ability to communicate with others or accessible services in your language, your neighborhoods, availability of parks, how all of that impacts people's health and truly impacts people's life expectancy, as you all know. So we started a program in 2018 called Medical Legal Community Partnership. What it is exactly what the title says. It is a partnership between doctors and health providers and lawyers. So the two groups, the lawyers and the medical team, they work together to address those barriers that we are talking about, those barriers that impact their health. They handle legal issues such as evictions, access to benefits, and I'll go into a little bit more in a minute. But they do a few things. They provide direct legal assistance. So before COVID, before the pandemic, we had the lawyers actually located at the health clinic. So a doctor could be doing an exam on a patient, and then the patient could say, "Oh, I just got evicted last week," or I'm in this relationship that is not a safe one, and I don't know what to do about it. And the doctors could send them right down the hall to meet with the lawyer. And now during COVID, it's all become remote, but they really do still work as a team. They provide this direct legal assistance. The other thing that the lawyers do is that they train people, and they train the doctors and social workers and community health workers to understand some of these legal barriers and to understand that some of these issues that people are having are actually legal issues. Sometimes they can't be addressed by a social worker, they can't be addressed by a doctor, but they can be addressed by legal action or legal involvement. Here's what we call it iHelp, with an extra H, but here's the issues that our lawyers from these nonprofit legal firms help with: income, housing, that includes utilities. If utilities are unfairly shut off, or people are living in really poor living conditions, like mold in the apartment. And mold is actually a great example because mold can contribute to asthma. Asthma attacks land you in the emergency room. If you get rid of the mold in your apartment, your asthma attacks will likely subside and you won't have to go to the emergency room as much. Health coverage and access, education, special education issues for children, literacy, legal status, that's the immigration, and personal and community safety. So that's violence, domestic violence, There's a lot of things under each of these categories, but that's the basic outline of the kinds of services that the lawyers provide. There's a bunch of different partners. You guys know these legal aid organizations well. They are fantastic. Neighborhood Legal Services of LA, the Legal Aid Foundation of Los Angeles, VetSetic, and Mental Health Advocacy Services. Those are our key partners. And while our program, the Medical Legal Partnership, is for our patients at DHS, all of these organizations serve the community in lots of different partnerships and just individually on their own. So people can always be sent to these organizations. All right, so I just want to share a little bit more about the program. And I hope you guys will consider writing about it. I think it's super interesting and a great story. In fact, one of my very first stories in 2010, when I started covering healthcare, was about medical legal partnerships. It was at St. John's Well Child and Family Center, and it was in partnership with Neighborhood Legal Services. And it featured a young lawyer who was also a doctor who was working on these programs. And then fast forward 10 years later, and I work very closely with that lawyer / doctor on this program. So anyway, it's fascinating, lots of really compelling tales. It started in 2018 at one site, MLK Outpatient Center, the Martin Luther King Jr. Outpatient Center down next to the Martin Luther King Community Hospital. And then we expand, community health workers could also call in can also call in to help people reach these services. There's also programs like this across the nation. We're not unique, which makes it even more interesting from a journalistic perspective, because this is something that is across the country and has impact. There's been a ton of research on it, academic research, that it helps decrease costs of healthcare. It helps people build trust in the health system and in the legal system, and it improves people's health overall. I mentioned that during the pandemic, we've moved it to phone services, but it's more important than ever. We know that people are dealing with a lot of different issues because of the pandemic. So I'm going to get to a couple examples because I think that'll bring it to life. But let me just show this really quick. That we've served since in the 2 years plus, 2.5 years. This is the most recent data I have, about 3,300 people so far in this program. And the biggest issue by far is income. People who've lost their Social Security, access to their Social Security check or to their cash aid, who've unfairly been cut off of their food stamps, that sort of thing. And the second kind of tied issues are immigration issues, public charge, big one, and housing conditions and evictions. Okay, so, oh no, it stopped the slideshow. Let me see if I can, give me just 1 second. Maybe I can at least open it on my screen so I can just tell you a little bit about a couple examples of cases that we have had. Okay, all right, so here's one. This is a housing issue. So this is somebody who was threatened of being locked out by her landlord. And her lawyers provided her with legal counsel and advised her on her rights and legal process prior to eviction. And she had no idea. She had no idea of this process, what her rights were, how to handle an eviction. All she knew is that she'd gotten this eviction notice and this lockout. And so the lawyer, or this threat of a lockout, the lawyers represented her in court and negotiated a favorable outcome for her. Okay, here's another one. This is healthcare. I stopped sharing my screen. So I know somebody said you can't share my screen. So that was really the end of the slideshow. I just have a couple examples of cases, but I'm just going to talk you through them. So you don't have to read on my words on the screen. The second one is a healthcare issue. This is somebody who was recently released from jail. And when you're in jail, you lose access to Medi-Cal. So the person was coming out of jail and didn't know how to get back onto Medi-Cal and needed a surgical procedure and was experiencing delays with Medi-Cal and couldn't get the appointment scheduled until the Medi-Cal issue got resolved. It was a mess. So the lawyers helped him get in touch with HealthNet, which is a Medi-Cal health plan here in LA County, which immediately looked into the case and scheduled him ASAP to get back onto Medi-Cal and to help get this procedure, this surgery. And the lawyers also helped the client get onto Medi-Cal and really understand how to use it. The lawyers communicated directly with the Department of Public Social Services to make sure the Medi-Cal application went through without any problems. So they're advocates as well as lawyers, right? They do both for these patients. Okay, and then the final one is immigration, an immigration example. This was a person who had immigrated from Guatemala into the United States, into Los Angeles. Her husband had been abusive, and she reported the domestic violence to the police. Now, she didn't know that actually enables her or allows her to get a special type of visa at the time. It's called a U visa for people who are victims of crime. And the lawyers helped this client with a petition to get that U visa and to be able to get a visa to stay in the US. So these are just 3 examples, that migration, healthcare, and housing, of really how this project works and how this access to legal services and civil legal services can actually help people's health. Once somebody is able to stay in their apartment, keep their Medi-Cal benefits, or get a visa to actually stay in the country, all of that, and to get out of an abusive relationship, all of that helps people stay healthier.